revealed how a homeless man's amazing lesson transformed a billionaire's life in just 30 days. Jack Thompson had it all: multi-million-dollar deals, a penthouse view that kissed the clouds, and a life that glittered with luxury. But as he stepped out of the swanky Chicago gala, the laughter around him felt hollow. Each "congratulations. And what's next for you, Jack?" echoed like a distant memory. Inside, an emptiness gnawed at him, a void that no amount of success or wealth could fill. He was a billionaire, yet he felt like just another cog in the corporate machine, lost among the skyscrapers that framed his self-made kingdom. As he wandered aimlessly, the night cloaked him in solitude. He sauntered past parks, their benches resting under moonlight. One caught his eye, where a scruffy figure sat, head bowed. As Jack approached, a deep voice broke the silence. "Got a minute?" It was Tom, a homeless Vietnam veteran. His face, weathered yet warm, held stories buried deep in each line. For a moment, Jack hesitated. This wasn't the glamorous company he was used to, and an unsettling feeling washed over him. What if Tom saw through the shimmering facade of his life? But curiosity won. "What's your name?" Jack found himself asking, his voice softer than he intended. "Tom," came the reply, accompanied by a smile that seemed to pierce through Jack's guarded heart. Their conversation began awkwardly, civilities exchanged like currency in the middle of a barren desert. Jack spoke of stock markets and business ventures, while Tom shared of camaraderie and brotherhood forged in the chaos of war. The disparity was astonishing. As they spoke, Jack felt his chest tighten, realizing the weight of all that Tom had endured. "Money ain't everything, Jack," Tom said, eyes glistening. "I learned long ago that the richest among us can be the poorest at heart." Suddenly, Jack's life of metrics and profits felt foreign, empty. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Over the next 30 days, they met at the same spot. With every diner meal that passed between them, Jack witnessed the joy in strolls through nearby community gardens, in volunteering at shelters, and in helping fellow veterans reclaim their dignity. Tom's spirit lifted Jack's heart, teaching him to reframe success not around balance sheets, but around kindness, resilience, and gratitude. As the city lights shimmered at night, Jack began to feel a warmth he had long forgotten. Hope was blooming in his otherwise unyielding corporate heart. Each project chased away the creeping shadows of loneliness, filling the void with purpose. But just as clarity glimmered on the horizon, darkness loomed. A corporate crisis struck, the kind Jack had always adeptly navigated, yet this time it felt different. The whispers of layoffs haunted the plush hallways like harbingers of doom. Jack's world threatened to collapse under the weight of profit margins. Torn and anxious, he glanced at Tom, who sat patiently beside him, wisdom gleaming in his eyes. Jack found himself at a crossroads. Would he cling to the cold steel of corporate greed, or would he risk the empire he had built to honor the spirit of community he had discovered? The storm approached swiftly, and as determination surged within him, the question hung heavily in the air. Would he choose to stand alone, or would he rally those around him to brave the tempest together? The crisis unfolded quickly. Hushed conversations filled the office halls, a tapestry of whispered worries weaving a narrative of uncertainty. Jack sat at his polished mahogany desk, staring at numbers that no longer resonated with meaning. Cuts were coming, but he had the power to choose who would fall under the blade. Tom's words echoed like a lifeline in his mind. The richest among us can be the poorest at heart. Was Jack willing to sacrifice lives for profit? He looked out the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city sprawling below him, a living billboard of ambition illuminated by 1,000 dreams. Yet, he felt detached from the electricity of it all. A sense of urgency pressed against his chest as he remembered the faces of the workers he employed, their hopes pinned on the stability he once took for granted. That evening, Jack found himself at their usual bench, the moon a silent witness to his turmoil. Tom was waiting, as if he could sense the storm inside Jack. His weathered hands were wrapped around a paper cup of coffee, steam curling up like whispers of hope. "Hey, Jack," Tom greeted, his voice warm and inviting, pulling Jack from his reverie. "You look like you've wrestled with demons tonight." Jack chuckled softly, the tension easing for just a moment. "More like battling giants. Work as it's a mess right now." Tom leaned forward, his gaze steady. "You've got a choice. Determining what's worth more in your heart can guide you through this. I could cut jobs, you know. It would save the bottom line," Jack said, his voice falling to a whisper, ashamed at the thought. But it removes the heart," Tom finished, understanding flickering in his eyes. "What can you build without people? If you see them as numbers on a page, then you are right back where you started empty." Jack drew in a shaky breath, feeling the weight of Tom's words resonate deep within him. "I don't want that. I want to create something that lasts, something real." "I can't promise it'll be easy," Tom said, resting a hand on Jack's shoulder. "But you just might inspire others to stand with you." Determination surged within Jack, igniting a fire that had long been extinguished. "Then, what if I turn this crisis into an opportunity? Can I build a community amid the chaos?" Tom smiled, a glimmer of pride sparkling in his eyes. "Now that's a start. They need a leader who cares. Stand for them, and they'll stand for you." Fueled by newfound resolve, Jack envisioned a gathering of employees, stakeholders, anyone who would listen. It would be an open conversation, a collaborative discussion on how to navigate the storm together rather than divided. The next day, he sent out invites, creating a buzz of anticipation. As the day approached, nerves fluttered in his stomach. Will they trust him? Could he bridge the gap that had widened over the years? The conference room was buzzing, a mixture of concern and curiosity filling the air as he stood at the front. Jack took a deep breath, feeling the eyes on him, the weight of expectation heavy yet invigorating. "Thank you all for coming," he began, voice steady despite the trembling inside. "I know things are tough right now, but it's time we rethink what we stand for as a company." As he spoke, a sense of unity formed, a collective heartbeat echoed in the room. Jack could see the doubts slowly transform into hope and determination, face after face lighting up with understanding. But just as momentum built, the doors swung open, and the ominous figure of his CFO stormed in, a storm cloud in his eyes. "Jack, we need to talk." A chill ran down Jack's spine. What did this mean? Would the darkness swallow his fragile rays of light? The future was uncertain, but he had taken the first step. Now everything hung in balance. What would happen next? Jack's heart raced. The atmosphere in the room shifted sharply, tension wrapping around him like a noose. He faced the CFO, a man built on hard facts and razor-sharp logic, and more importantly, a man who held the keys to the company's future. "Now," Jack said, attempting to keep his voice calm but failing. "Yes, now." The CFO's gaze swept over the employees, noting their concerned faces. "This isn't the place for this discussion." "No, it is," Jack insisted, gaining a sliver of courage. "These people deserve to hear it, too." A murmur spread through the crowd, eyes darting between Jack and the CFO. Jack's mind was racing. He could feel the walls closing in around him. "Fine," said the CFO, folding his arms tightly. "But make it quick. We have a serious situation." Jack took a deep breath. "We're in a crisis, yes, but I believe we can work through this together. I've been thinking about how we can not just survive, but thrive. If we join forces and support each other, we can rebuild stronger." The CFO scoffed, leaning against the doorframe. "You think hope and teamwork will save us? The numbers don't lie, Jack. Cuts have to happen, and soon." Jack shot back, his palms sweaty against the surface of the podium. "But at what cost? These aren't just numbers. They're people with lives, families, dreams. You're talking about cutting the heart out of this company." Challenging glances passed across the conference room. Jack could see nodding heads among his employees, shifting the tide of support in his favor. "Bernard," Jack said, struggling to keep the desperation out of his voice, "remember the last time we had to make cuts? How it drained the morale. We lost our best talent. What if we invest in our employees instead? Help them navigate this crisis?" For a moment, there was silence, the tension crackling like static. The CFO opened his mouth, but Jack pressed on, fueled by the support he sensed behind him. "Innovation comes from closeness," Jack argued. "Let us adapt. Let us create programs that focus on retention, training, and collaboration. Let us turn this around together. We can find a way to save jobs without losing our souls. Fingers clenched the edges of tables as employees leaned forward, absorbing every word. The CFO's face hardened, but unease flickered in his eyes. You're playing with fire, Jack. Or igniting a flame of community. Jack shot back, raising his chin defiantly. He was no longer just an employee, he was a leader. The room held its breath, hanging on the precipice of change. Would the CFO dismiss him or find clarity in the passion of his plea? Listen, the CFO said slowly, lifting one finger as if to marshal his thoughts. This isn't a charity. We're in business. And I'm asking you to invest in our greatest asset, Jack replied, his voice steady. This is the moment we choose to stand together or let fear divide us. Are we a business of numbers? Or do we build something that has heart? Jack could see the tension on the CFO's face shift slightly, uncertainty creeping into his expression. Around the room, eyes shone with cautious hope. Bernard, think about it, Jack continued, his heart beginning to leap again. People are the foundation of what we do. If we lose sight of that, what do we have left? But just then, a loud crash echoed from the back of the room. Everyone turned. A commotion broke out as a woman stumbled in, breathless and wild-eyed, clutching a tattered backpack. I have to speak. It's important, she shouted, drawing immediate attention and curiosity. Jack's breath caught. Who was she? What was this interruption about? The room hung in a fragile balance, caught between Jack's plea and this unexpected newcomer. Could she be the spark they needed, or would this be another distraction that drove them further apart? Jack's heart thudded as he stared at the woman, still processing the unexpected turn of events. Whispers erupted around the room, drawing eyes away from the CFO and towards this wild-eyed newcomer. The tension shifted, as if the collective energy was drawn into her frantic presence. Please, just listen, she pleaded, stepping further into the room. She was disheveled, clothes worn and frayed, but her eyes burned with a fierce determination. Jack's instincts told him she was here for a reason. Who are you? The CFO demanded, his voice dripping with irritation. I'm Emma, she replied, her voice cracking as she took a deep breath. I know this isn't my place, but I have something to share that might help. It's about survival. Jack felt a strange mix of dread and curiosity. The stakes were already high. Could she really add to the chaos? Yet, something in Emma's demeanor resonated. He wanted to know what she had to say. Just give her a chance, he said softly, settling back as the CFO raised an eyebrow, holding the floor with an air of reluctant authority. Emma stepped forward, her backpack clutched tightly like a shield. I've been living on the streets near here for a while now. You wouldn't believe the kind of people I've met, surviving against all odds. She paused, taking in the faces surrounding her, vulnerable yet fierce. I learned some tough lessons about what really matters when everything seems lost. Get to the point, Bernard barked, clearly irritated but perhaps curious too. Emma steadied herself as if the words were a lifeline. People don't just need jobs, they need hope. When you lose everything, you realize it's the connections that matter. The friendships you forge, the communities you create, it's those bonds that keep you from falling apart. Jack felt the warmth in her words. A flicker of understanding sparked in the employees around him. Memories of their own struggles echoed in her narrative, and he could see barriers beginning to crumble. We all have stories, right? Emma continued, her voice rising in intensity. I've talked to so many people you wouldn't expect to struggle, and every one of them says the same thing. When they had support, they fought harder. They learned to be resilient. Jack nodded, feeling the urgency of her message. This was what he had been trying to articulate, this human element that transcended the coldness of numbers. Invest in your people, she urged. Treat them like family. If you do, they'll give you everything they have. When I finally got a chance at a job, that company saw me as more than just a statistic. They saw my potential. It's all about lifting each other up. The CFO's face was inscrutable, his brow furrowing as the words sank in. Employees exchanged glances, some nodding slowly, a growing sense of unity washing over the room. Isn't that what you were saying, Jack? Emma turned to him, eyes bright with hope. Exactly, Jack replied, feeling a surge of energy. It's about community and connection. Community, Bernard echoed, and for the first time, he seemed to falter. Emma took a step closer, determination written across her face. I just wanted to share that we can all find light in the darkest places, but only if we choose to see each other and invest in each other. Silence hung like a fragile thread. All eyes were on the CFO, who was wrestling with the moment. He looked around the room, their faces lit with possibility. They were ready to embrace change. Then, a soft voice piped up from the back. But what if? The atmosphere thickened again with uncertainty, the question hanging in the air, ripe with potential for new discussions. Jack took a deep breath, ready to embrace whatever was next. This was just the beginning. The spark of transformation had been ignited. What would they choose to fuel it with? Emma's determined gaze swept across the room, a quiet challenge hanging in the air. Jack felt the energy shift again as anticipation crackled. What if what? She prompted, pulling the focus back to the question that lingered. Heads turned toward the voice in the shadows, a timid young employee named Millie. Jack remembered her quiet demeanor. She was known for her exceptional work, but rarely spoke up. What if we try and fail? Millie continued, her voice barely above a whisper, but it felt like a thunderclap in the room. What if we open our hearts and don't get the same in return? The CFO crossed his arms, but his tight expression softened just a fraction. The vulnerability of Millie's question pricked at the edges of stubbornness that seemed to guard his heart. Emma stepped further forward, her intensity unwavering. What if you do nothing? What if you keep your walls up? She challenged, her voice dropping to a fierce whisper. The only way to truly fail is to never try. You have to take that leap of faith. Shifting in his seat, Jack could see the moment of reflection dawn on the CFO's face. Emma wasn't just speaking hollow words. She was reaching into the depths of what controlled the room. Moments of hesitation flickered among the employees as they recorded this raw exchange, their breaths becoming synchronized with Emma's rhythm. And what if it doesn't work out? Bernard interjected, now a hint of apprehension threading through his authoritative tone. What if this community building doesn't yield the profits we need, or worse, leads us down a path of distraction? Eyes filled with uncertainty danced toward Emma, as if seeking her assurance. Jack observed her quickening pulse through the veil of her anxiety. She exhaled, her backpack swaying slightly with the motion. In those moments of adversity, you find out what you're truly made of. It's not about avoiding risk, it's about facing it together. When you invest in people, they truly invest back. You may not see it in immediate profits, but you'll see a transformation in culture and resilience. The silence that followed was pregnant with contemplation. Jack envisioned the shift, the invisible threads of camaraderie weaving through the vacant spaces around the conference table. Imagine for a second, Emma went on, her voice gaining strength, a workplace where everyone feels seen and valued, where they support one another, not just in achieving targets, but in life. You'd be surprised how much more people are willing to give when they feel ownership in their work. People want to feel like they're part of something bigger. Millie's eyes widened at Emma's words. Jack felt a subtle ripple of agreement from the others in the room. Moments of human connection had turned into something profound and raw. Slowly, he rose from his chair, sensing the pull of a shared mission. What if we started small? He suggested, shifting everyone's focus back to tangible steps. Let us have a weekly sharing session balancing work and personal stories, connecting through our struggles, our triumphs. A chance for everyone to contribute ideas, to build trust. A murmur of excitement began to build in the ranks. Emma nodded, her face lighting up at Jack's suggestion. You could turn that room into an incubator of hope. She interjected, excitement bubbling in her voice. Imagine sharing your life lessons, uplifting each other beyond those office walls. Just as the room began to buzz with energy, Bernard's voice cut through with skepticism. That sounds all well and good, but what if we don't have the time? What if this is all just idealism? It could derail everything. Jack felt the stakes rise again. He stood firm. Or it could transform everything. Our production, our morale, our profit. Imagine the dividends from this investment of time and heart, turning the intangible into the invaluable. A deep silence fell over the room as each person reflected. Emma looked at Jack, pride shining in her eyes. This was their moment, a delicate precipice between hesitation and daring change. But the question loomed large, inviting skepticism and hope in equal measure. Would they take that leap, or would fear hold them back? As Jack gazed around the room, a mixture of determination and anxiety danced in the air. What awaited them on the other side of this choice? He could only hope they would approach it with open hearts. The energy in the room was thick, charged with unspoken thoughts and the weight of Bernard's skepticism. Jack could feel a shift like the quiet before a storm. The murmurs around him pooled into an almost tangible current, drawing them closer to a decision. Yet, uncertainty nipped at the edges of the collective resolve. Emma took a deep breath, her determination shining even brighter now. "Look," she said, her voice steady but soft. "Change is scary. It pushes us out of our comfort zones. But those hard conversations? They can lead us to breakthroughs we never expected." One by one, eyes locked onto hers. It was almost like they hung on every word, each heartbeat reverberating with the potential of what was unfolding. Even Bernard seemed to waver, his brow furrowing as if the idea had taken root in his thoughts. What if we could prove that being open and vulnerable isn't a weakness, but a strength? Jack added, desperate to keep the momentum alive. It's in sharing our stories that we grow. We create a support system, a family. And that kind of connection? It changes everything. Millie's quiet voice piped up again. "I think we should try. Even if it doesn't go perfectly, it's better than nothing." This time, her words came with an unexpected confidence, igniting hope across the table. Emma smiled at Millie, her expression brightening with pride. "Yes, it's about the journey, not just the destination. And honestly, there's no failure in trying. We'll learn, we'll adapt, and we'll do it together." Slowly, hands began to rise, one by one, as people expressed their willingness to take that leap with Emma and Jack. The CFO shifted his weight, his crossed arms uncrossing as a hint of a smile broke through the seriousness of his facade. "I suppose we can allocate a couple of hours a week," he started, his voice trailing off as if he were wrestling with a giant. "If it helps create a supportive environment, it might just be worth the risk." A ripple of applause broke out, each clap layered with excitement and a hint of disbelief. The room buzzed with renewed energy as though the air itself had ignited. Jack's heart swelled. For the first time, he saw their workplace shifting from a mere collection of individuals to an actual community, ready to embrace vulnerability and bravery. Emma's eyes locked with his, and they shared a quiet, jubilant moment of understanding. But then, the atmosphere shifted once more as a soft voice called out from the back. "What happens when someone doesn't want to share?" It was David, an employee known for his sarcasm rather than his insights. Jack frowned, sensing a possible crack in their new foundation. "That's okay," he replied, conscious of the delicate balance they were trying to establish. "We're not forcing anything. Everyone should feel comfortable to step forward when they're ready. The important part is knowing the door is open for them." "Still, what if we fail?" David's question lingered, heavy and unyielding. Emma stepped forward again, her conviction unwavering. "Then we learn from it. Everything we do has value. It's time to shift how we think about mistakes. They're not the end, they're lessons, opportunities for growth." A murmur of agreement traveled across the room. Hope flickered like a flame in the darkness, but insecurity still loomed on the horizon. Jack couldn't ignore it. He could feel it pulling at their fragile optimism. As the meeting wrapped up, a contagious energy lingered in the air. They were teetering on the precipice of transformation. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once. For Jack, thoughts raced and settled at the same time. What would their first sharing session look like? Would they bond as intended, or would insecurities build walls instead? Questions danced around in his mind, questions that had no easy answers and would demand to be faced head-on. Are we really ready for this? He wondered silently as he gathered his things. But deep down, he felt a shift, a pulse of determination. They'd taken that leap. Now, how would they navigate the journey that lay ahead? And so as he stepped out of the room, the air buzzed with both excitement and trepidation. What awaited them in the deeper waters of vulnerability and connection? Would their leap of faith pay off, or would they find themselves sinking instead? Jack stepped into the hallway, the din of the meeting still echoing in his ears. He could hardly focus as he wandered past the conference room with a mix of excitement and anxiety swirling inside him. Would they truly break down the walls they had unknowingly built? The thought clung to him as he watched familiar faces flit by, each one marked with curiosity and concerned as he walked toward the break room. He spotted Emma, her sandy hair trailing like sunlight behind her. She stood by the coffee machine, her expression bright and hopeful. She caught Jack's gaze and smiled broadly, that infectious smile that just seemed to light up the entire floor. "Hey, did you see how everyone responded?" she asked, her voice bubbling with enthusiasm. "Yeah, it felt electric," Jack admitted as he leaned against the wall, the heat of the moment still palpable. "But what if it doesn't go the way we hope?" Emma's brow furrowed for a moment, her smile fading slightly. "That's the risk, Jack. But we have to believe in the process. If we don't take this leap, how will we ever know what we can achieve together? But what if it reveals things we're not ready to face? What if the truth hurts instead of heals?" Jack countered, the worry in his chest rising like a tide. She shrugged, crossing her arms as she leaned against the counter. "It might. But sometimes, the hardest truths lead to the best changes. Remember what we talked about? Growth comes through discomfort." Before Jack could respond, a voice interrupted them. It was Bernard, his features serious as he approached, cutting through the air like a knife. "I hope you two are not getting too carried away with this idea. A support system is great, but it also exposes vulnerabilities. We're at work. It's not a therapy session." Jack straightened, his pulse quickening. "We're not trying to replace therapy, Bernard. Just trying to foster a community. It's important to have a safe space." Bernard shook his head slowly. "Safe spaces can often lead to chaos. There will be those who will share too much or feel cornered into sharing. You'll see. This isn't a fairy tale." The unyielding doubt from Bernard hovered between them, casting a shadow over their optimism. Jack felt the unease creeping back in, tightening around his heart. What if Bernard was right? Undeterred, Emma stepped in with a measured tone. "We won't force anyone. The idea of sharing is to encourage connection, not to create discomfort. We just want to know each other beyond titles and presentations." Bernard's face softened just a fraction. "I don't want to see you both get hurt. Just remember the risks." As Bernard walked away, a heavy silence settled around Jack and Emma. He turned toward her, his brow knitted. What if some people use this opportunity to tear others down instead of build something up? Emma took a moment, letting the question hang like a muted bell. "That's possible, but we can only focus on the good. We need to create our own light in this journey. If we show that vulnerability is strength, it might just inspire others." Jack nodded slowly, feeling the pulse of her conviction. His mind buzzed with possibilities. They could foster change, but at what cost? Suddenly, Millie appeared, her eyes wide with excitement. "I'm totally ready for the first session. I've been thinking about what to share already. I've struggled a lot, and I really believe this could help." Jack smiled at her enthusiasm, but beneath it lay a pang of uncertainty. Was she ready to delve into her struggles in front of others? "Millie, that's great, but remember you don't have to share if it feels too much," he reminded her gently. "There's no pressure." As they continued talking, Jack couldn't shake the lingering doubt that pulsed in the back of his mind. They were at the brink of something monumental, but would they embrace the hope it promised, or would fear wrap its claws around them in the end? That night, as Jack lay in bed, thoughts swirled like a tempest. A haunting question gnawed at him. Were they truly prepared for what lay ahead? As the dawn crept in, Jack realized one undeniable truth: they were on the cusp of something life-changing. But would they be inspired or exposed? Would they rise together, or would they find secrets that shattered them? The moment of truth was looming, and Jack felt the weight of it pressing down on him like a heavy blanket. The next week would reveal all that they had dared to dream. But what would they uncover when they peeled back the layers of their lives? As the sun rose the next day, Jack's mind raced with anticipation. Today was the day. He was both excited and unnerved, caught in a whirlpool of unrealized dreams and fears. He dressed quickly, his hands moving mechanically as he replayed Emma's words in his head. Growth comes through discomfort. Yet, that phrase now bore the weight of 1,000 possibilities. The office buzzed with a different energy that morning. There was a current of curiosity as people gathered for their first session. Jack felt it in the air, a mix of excitement and trepidation. He made his way to the designated room, glancing around. Faces he recognized, and some he didn't. He approached the gathering space, each step punctuated with muffled conversation. Emma arrived soon after, her smile radiant and contagious. "Are you ready?" she asked, her eyes sparkling. Jack forced a smile, throat tight. I think I am. But what if it doesn't go as we hope? Just focus on the positive, Emma encouraged, nudging his shoulder playfully. We'll figure it out together. Remember, everyone's here to support each other. But deep down, Jack couldn't shake the gnawing feeling. What if the support he hoped to create spiraled into something chaotic and hurtful? They entered the room, and Jack took a deep breath as he glanced around. The seating was arranged in a circle, inviting and open, like a welcoming embrace. Slowly, faces turned toward them. He felt an odd connection with each person in the room, a common thread weaving them together. Millie, sitting cross-legged, fidgeted with her necklace, a mix of eagerness and apprehension swirling in her demeanor. Bernard lingered by the exit, arms crossed with a skeptical glance, still wary, still protective. Jack and Emma took their seats, and Jack cleared his throat, breaking the anxious silence. Thank you all for being here today. We're hoping to create a space where we can share openly and support each other. No titles, just us. The room remained silent, some faces lighting up with curiosity, while others expressed uncertainty. What if it gets too personal? A voice piped up. It was Greg, the accounting department's reserved analyst. Jack nodded, acknowledging the concern. That's completely valid. You don't have to share anything you aren't comfortable with. This is not a mandate, it's about connection. Slowly, like a timid dancer stepping onto the stage, Millie raised her hand. I'll go first. Arms trembling, she glanced around the circle, searching for encouragement. I've dealt with anxiety for a long time. It was so overwhelming at times that I felt like I couldn't breathe. But I've been working on it, and I think being honest about it might help me. Tears glistened in Millie's eyes, but her voice steadied as she continued. Each word was a thread woven into a tapestry of shared experiences. Jack could sense the room shift. Something was beginning. People were leaning in, their expressions softening, almost as if her vulnerability had lifted a heavy veil. Then, to Jack's surprise, Bernard spoke up. I admire what you're doing, Millie, even if I have my reservations about this setup. We all have something we're carrying. The room buzzed, energy ignited. Emma turned her gaze to Jack, eyes wide with wonder. He felt a surge of hope mixing with disbelief. Could this truly be the beginning of something beautiful? As the session continued, more voices filled the space. Each story brought with it a unique weight, a different layer of struggle, and the atmosphere grew thicker with shared vulnerabilities. Jack listened intently, the essence of hope wrapping itself around each account. For every raw moment uttered, laughter erupted occasionally too. But even amid the healing, Jack felt that familiar thread of doubt snaking through his thoughts. They had only taken their first steps, but would they stumble, or could they find footing in this new dance of connection? Then, just as Jack thought they had reached a strong point, the door swung open. It was Rachel from marketing, her face pale, breathless. You have to see this, she said, panic, lacing her words. It's important. The atmosphere shifted in an instant, a mixture of concern and intrigue rippling through the room. Jack's heart raced. What lay behind a door so abruptly opened might change everything they had begun to build. As his gaze met Emma's questioning eyes, a silent understanding passed between them. They were in uncharted territory now, a place where breakthroughs and trials intertwined. What news awaited them, and would it pull them together or tear them apart? Only time would tell. Rachel stepped inside, her hands trembling slightly as she tried to catch her breath. The room went still, an invisible thread of tension wrapping around everyone present. Jack instinctively stood, his heart racing like a drum in his chest. What is going on, Rachel? He asked, the concern in his voice echoing the unease in the air. She looked around the circle, gauging the mood, trying to find the right words. It's about a situation in the park. A man has been living there for months. But today he collapsed. Her voice broke, and she took a deep breath before continuing. I think he needs help. I thought you all should know. The silence that followed felt heavy, thickening the atmosphere even further. Jack's mind raced. He remembered the man, an elderly figure he often saw on his way to work. Lifeless eyes that watched the world pass by without hope. Do we know if he is okay? Jack asked, wanting to reach out, wanting to act. Rachel shook her head, her eyes glistening. I don't know. Someone called for an ambulance, but I thought maybe we could do more. He needs community. He needs people who care. Jack's instincts kicked in. This was a world apart from their shared vulnerabilities. Yet, at the heart of it all, it was the same struggle human connection. What if we went out there? Maybe we can take some supplies, or just be there for him. Show that he is not alone. Not alone, Emma echoed softly, her voice barely above a whisper, the words fizzling like a flame catching heat. That is powerful. The room resonated with an air of solidarity. They had been sharing their fears and vulnerabilities just moments before, and now they could put that into action. Millie's eyes sparkled with determination. We should go, even if it's just to sit with him and talk. Jack looked around, noticing nods of agreement as the group's energy shifted from passive to proactive. Okay then, let us gather what we can. Food, blankets, anything that can help. Excitement murmured through the crowd like wind stirring the branches of a tree. With a swift determination, Jack began organizing everyone. They quickly set to work, gathering supplies and creating a small plan. He felt a rush of energy. This was the kind of connection he had hoped to create. This was about being there for one another in moments of desperation. As they stepped out into the crisp air, there was a sense of purpose mingling with fear and hope. The outside world felt alive, full of sounds and chaos, but Jack's heart beat loudly in his chest. He was stepping into something bigger than himself, something that could change lives, including his own. Finally, they arrived at the familiar park, the sun shining down on the people passing by. But as they approached the area where the man usually settled, Jack's heart sank. There was a crowd gathered, the distant sound of sirens approaching. The group pushed through, each face filled with concern. What if we're too late? Greg whispered, the worry seeping into his voice. Jack felt the same tightness in his throat again. We won TB, he reassured, even as doubt crept in. They squeezed into the circle of people, and Jack's breath caught in his throat. One of the paramedics was kneeling beside the man, who lay still on the ground. Suddenly, everything felt fragile. In that moment, Jack realized that their stories were interwoven, as were the struggles they shared. The truth of vulnerability pushed deeper than any fear. He stepped forward, ready to do whatever it took to help. We're here for him, Jack said. We're not going anywhere. In the chaos, Jack and the group's presence felt like a beacon shining against the darkness. But just then, a voice broke through the murmur. He is waking up. Hope surged in Jack's chest, but a question lingered: would they succeed in connecting in this moment of crisis? Stealing a glance at Emma, he wondered if what they were building would withstand the tremors of reality. And as the man slowly opened his eyes, Jack felt the answer fluttering uncertainly in the pit of his stomach. Could they truly forge a bond that would transform not just their own lives, but his as well? The man blinked, confusion etched across his weathered face. Jack stepped to the front of the crowd, vulnerability melding with courage in a way he never imagined possible. We're here, he said softly, kneeling down. You're not alone. The man's eyes met Jack's, and something flickered: doubt, fear, but also hope. Jack could see the weight of loneliness he carried, a burden many of them shared in their own ways. He reached out a hand, feeling the nervousness ripple through the crowd. We brought supplies, food, just some things to ease your day. The man's gaze softened for a moment, but insecurity still clouded his expression. From behind him, Emma stepped forward, kneeling beside Jack. People care, she said, her voice steady and filled with warmth. You matter. We're here to share what we have, not just to help, but to connect. The man's breath became less shaky, and he blinked away tears. Jack noticed, too, that the crowd began to shift. Faces softened, ready to act on the fragile bond they were creating. The connection they had forged in that conference room was now spilling over into real action, infused with raw, sincere love and empathy. Millie moved closer, her hands clasped nervously. Do you need anything? She asked. We would love to help however we can. The other employees followed suit, murmuring their wishes for support. Quietly, the man nodded, the walls he had built starting to crack. Let us sit with him, Jack suggested, glancing around at the crowd, his heart swelling with an unexpected sense of belonging. No rush. Let us be here. One by one, they sank down in the grass, creating a circle filled with warmth and connection, each person becoming a part of something bigger than themselves. Jack felt the fear begin to peel away, revealing something beautiful: a collective spirit of humanity. The paramedics wrapped the man in a warm blanket, and Jack watched as the group surrounded him, murmuring encouragement and comfort. It was a simple moment, but loaded with transformative power. Jack realized this was exactly what had been missing in his life, and the life of so many around him, a true community. As time passed, ripples of laughter began to echo around the group, mingling with stories of everyday life shared by those present. "My name's Jack, and I used to think success was just about numbers," he admitted, looking at the man, lingering on those deep-set eyes. "Now I see that it's all about connection. That's where true value lies." The man held his gaze, and for the first time, a glimmer of understanding danced in his eyes, too. "Tom," he responded, his voice rough yet grounded. "I've had my share of storms, but I never thought I'd be part of something different." Much later, as the park fell into the warmth of a setting sun, Jack took a moment to survey the scene. Around him were faces connected, laughing, healing. The uncertainty that once gripped him lessened, replaced by something powerful: hope. Tom smiled, a genuine warmth radiating from him, echoing across the group gathered in a circle. "You're not just numbers. You're each other's lifelines." Jack felt gratitude swell in his heart. Things had shifted, not just for Tom, but for everyone. The weight of expectations was beginning to lift, replaced by an understanding that connection and community would trump any spreadsheets and metrics. "Thank you for letting me share," Tom said. "It took me a long time to learn that life is about reaching out. It's about lifting each other up." Those words resonated deeply within Jack, reflecting back at the journey they had all embarked on together. As night descended, the employees dispersed, some offering Tom their numbers to check in later. Together, they had forged a new path filled with honesty and vulnerability. Jack felt different, like the weight of the world had softened just a bit. Back at the office the next day, he called a meeting with the CFO and the rest of the team. The energy in the room felt different, buoyed by the experience they shared with Tom. Jack stood tall at the front, ready to voice the plans they had begun to sketch under the stars the night before. "Let us not just survive, let us thrive together. Today, I propose we invest in community-building initiatives," Jack said, looking around the room of colleagues who wore expressions of disbelief and invigorated enthusiasm. "A culture of transparency and trust can only better us not just as a company, but as a family. I'm asking for your support in this. Let's rise together to create a new blueprint of success." Hope bloomed in the room as nods turned into cheers of agreement. As they plotted the course forward, Jack glanced outside and spotted Tom in the park, a comforting presence amid yellowed leaves and soft whispers of wind. In that moment, Jack realized this was the beginning of something extraordinary. This connection was the key to unlocking the deepest riches of life, stories to be shared, and struggles to be faced together. And as they stepped into this new chapter, it was clear they weren't just co-workers anymore. They were a community, ready to make a difference. Now, this is your moment. If you want to witness more stories that inspire and transform, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel. Hit that button and turn on all notifications, because you won't want to miss what's coming next. Also, leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. It truly makes a difference. Comment below with your thoughts and feelings about this ending. Share your reactions with the community, and don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear this transformation. Let us spread the word, empower each other, and create connections that matter.